Okay, what you're looking at is our next project. So I got this in the mail, just like you see it here, except it was boxed, obviously. Unpacked it, and this is what I have. Apparently, the person I got this from felt that they could repair whatever was wrong with this and got in a bit over their heads. So I have inherited this project. What this is, it's a Hearoid. It's an Omnibot robot from Tomy. You'll notice that it's quite similar to the Roby Senior robot. I probably have a video of one of those already that you can compare it to, but if you look up Roby, R-O-B-I-E Senior, I'm sure you're going to see that it's very similar. The cool thing about this robot, though, is that it is voice activated. And wow, you got to figure in the 1980s to have a voice activated, just to have a robot alone that you can program, and then on top of that have it be voice activated was huge, you know, and these weren't cheap. But so that's what we're going to restore. But what do I have going on here is, you know, quite a bit of a mess. First of all, as you can see, there is a plethora of dust. So the nice thing is I don't see anything major. It's just, it looks like it just needs a lot of cleaning up, maybe soapy water. I don't think I'm going to need to go as far as goof off or vinegar or anything like that. So I didn't see anything major. But what I did find is the dome has a melted spot in it, a cave, a little crater, you know, in it. I might be able to melt it out a little bit, but I'm just afraid that, you know, that's going to just be highly noticeable. So I'll probably polish this up, maybe just leave it as it is, depending on how well it polishes up. I could try to find another one of these, but the Hearoids alone are just so hard to find. Worse yet, trying to find a blue dome. The Roby Seniors are easier to find. They use the same dome, except it's clear. So I could also go that route, maybe tint the inside blue or leave it clear. The other thing is there's a lot of yellowing on this. So it looks like this is a great candidate for retrobrighting. You can see the color change there. So that's the other thing, is there's a lot of contrasting yellow and white. So it's not like I can just kind of leave it kind of yellowish, because there's just a lot of contrast between the white spots and the yellow. So if I don't end up retrobrighting, and I'm going to try retrobrighting first to see how well it does. And if it doesn't, I have always wanted to paint one of these, and I've been wanting to experiment with a metallic red, kind of like, you know, your Iron Man red. So that might be in its future. I'll heat up the decals and take the original decals off, and maybe that's the route we'll go. I don't know, we'll see. The other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take apart the cassette recorder, because I'm quite sure the rubber belt in it is probably all melted, if not gone. I can tell by the yellowing, it's been in the sun, or it's been under bright light, under heat, especially heat because of the dome. So I'm not convinced that that cassette player is probably in working order. But the worst part, and it's not even bad, but it's, you know, out of everything, the worst part, short of me finding that it's, whether it's functional or not, is the corrosion. So you can see the battery contacts, one's broken off, one is heavily corroded, the other side heavily corroded, and one is actually in decent shape. So after I clean it up, I'm going to tackle those first. I'm going to show you how I replace those. You can make replacements out of copper, but I actually use replacements that are already done. There are AA terminals that you can buy in packs, so I'll show you how I do that. So that's the game plan. We're gonna clean all this up, tackle the corrosion, retrobright, you know, a few pieces, see how that works out. Open up the cassette, more than likely replace the belt in it and get that in working order. And then we're going to test the remote, and we still have to open that up and see if that's corroded inside. Let me see here. So that's in really nice shape. You're looking at it for the first time as I am, so looks like the remote is in really good shape. We might have to, I don't know, I was thinking maybe we might have to 3D print some new treads, but these actually look pretty decent. There's a little tiny bit of a flat spot, but I think it's still decent. It's still in good shape. So even with the little flat spots, well, this one has some cracking. So I don't know, we'll see. I might 3D print some new treads, or I might make some out of silicone. We'll see how that goes. That's the least of my worries. My biggest concern is whether it actually works or not. So let's clean this up, and I'll be right back, and we'll tackle this together. Okay, so I'm going to look at fixing these. There's 3 of these terminals here that are pretty gone. They're pretty corroded. Not only that, one of these wires, you know, has corroded itself right off of the pad as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace those. Instead of making copper terminals, we're going to replace them with these battery clips. These battery clips I got from a place called Newark. I'll leave the link below. They fit perfectly in the grooves, and the only thing that you need to do is knock out these little pieces that typically would go onto a printed circuit board there on the bottom, and drill a small hole at the end for us to mount this. We're going to put like 2.5mm screws to hold these in place, and you'll see what I mean. So first things first, we're going to drill out these three terminals here. So I'm going to use a Dremel for that. Okay, so there's one. The others should just pop right out. So that is pretty bad. So we'll just pop out these others here. And we'll just drill them out from this side as well. Okay. So those guys should pop. Get a small little tiny screwdriver in here. Okay, there's that one. Let's see. By pushing that through, this guy popped right out. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the other one here. Okay. Okay, so there's that one. Get that little metal. We'll get that metal out in a second here. There we go. So now you got 4 nice clean holes. I think they're 2.5 millimeters. Yeah, 3 millimeters is a little too big. That's what that bolt was. So next thing we're going to do is get to drilling the little holes in these guys, and then they'll fit right straight in perfectly, just like that. So you can see on the other side that they align pretty well. Okay, so, and then we'll just place a flathead 2.5 millimeter screw here to hold it in place, and that will be that. So let's get to that next. Okay, so let me show you what I've done here, because I did a little bit of work off camera. Basically, I put these nickel plated battery clips on. I'll leave the link in the description. We can get these. I got them from New York, but I ordered a lot of parts. They're about 20 cents, you know, they've even that a piece for them. So they're almost really close to what the copper ones are. Basically, as I pointed out earlier, I drilled a hole in them underneath. So I put 2.5 millimeter screws that are really flat, so the AA batteries will rest on just barely on top of them, because this is just a little bit, there's just a tiny bit of a lip here for them to sit in, so that kind of works out really well. So on the back side, if I can get that focused in here, on the back side, they're held in by a nut for each one of those little tiny bolts that goes through. And I soldered the crisscross wires and the positive and negative that goes to the cassette board. And, you know, that basically took care of the 3 really badly corroded terminals. And you can see, you know, just how bad these things were. You know, they were on their last days. I mean, if you bent them just a little bit, they would just crack, you know, so they weren't even salvageable. And I didn't want to recreate ones from copper when those other clips already came as is. They just needed a small little hole drilled where the rivets would have been. So anyways, so that's that. I can call that done. So that'll take care of that. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at the cassette deck here. Let me get this thing focused in on that. So usually with these things, the belt is melted inside. So we're going to take this thing apart and take a look at the belt. I don't hear a little crack when I started unscrewing these, so it's usually a telltale sign that someone's probably already been in here. Yeah. Okay. Sure enough, I think someone's already been in here because I don't see a belt. And I don't see any melted rubber either. Usually you won't see a belt and then you see all the melted rubber from the belt along the wheel, but I don't see any melted rubber here. So it looks like someone's already been in here and either took the belt out. I don't see remnants of the belt anywhere in the case. So, okay, so at least I know I need a belt. So let me go grab a belt and I will be right back. Okay, so usually on the Omnibots you'll see, especially on the Omnibot 2000, you'll see a bridge here, like a little piece of metal that goes from here to here, that you kind of have to unscrew to take the belt off because the belt sits underneath it. The nice thing about the Hearoid here on this cassette deck is it doesn't have that, so the belt's easy to replace. So got our new belt here. Get that in place like that. And there we go. All right. So that'll take care of that. And you know, there's very little that goes wrong with these cassette units outside of maybe the motor, but you know, like I said, I don't see any remnants of a previous belt anywhere in here, so I would assume that the person I got this from, that was one of the things they were already looking into. Put this case back on here. All right, so let me get this back together and we'll see what's next. I could test all the motors on the drive gear, on the drive train, but we can do that when we put everything back together. The gear case is pretty easy to take out. So you want to be careful not to over tighten these things as well. It's just plastic. All right, so I think the next thing we're going to do is take a look at this guy here. And I think what we're going to do here is I think we're going to go ahead and Retrobright this guy. The top half of this is pretty yellow. The bottom half of it is, you know, kind of white, not really white, but it's a lot lighter. You can really tell. So I'm going to see about Retrobrighting this whole thing. I was thinking of painting all of this, you know, since it's kind of a bit of a project. It's not a full original restoration at this point. So, but it's a lot to take apart and paint. I'm rethinking that. So I'm going to at least Retrobright this piece and see where we go from there, and maybe Retrobright the body. If it comes out pretty well, then I'll just leave it like that. If it totally sucks, then I'll probably think about painting this thing a nice metal gray, gunmetal gray or something like that. All right, so let me see where we're going to go from here. Let's see how the Retrobrighting works out for us, and I'll come back with the next steps. Okay, I want to show you how to take this bottom piece out. In order to Retrobright this, I want to take this apart. So there are two tabs here, as you can see on this side, and they're just locking tabs. So I usually put an Allen wrench underneath it, and the same with the other one, and I kind of put the head of the unit between my legs, and then as you lift these up just a little tiny bit and you turn the head, lifting these up just a little bit will keep the unit, it'll unlock the unit. So it'll keep, because these things lock in place, so it keeps the head from turning. If you lift these up just a little bit, it'll allow you to turn the head and take this base unit off. It's important that you don't lift these too much because they will crack. So I'm going to do that off camera because I need to hold on to the headpiece and turn it at the same time. So you're going to lift these tabs up just a tiny bit while you turn, and you'll see that when you turn, the locking tabs will free themselves up. Okay, so if you see these two little tabs, I freed them up just a little bit. Okay, and now, as you can see, now that I've turned, they come right out. Now don't forget, when you put this back together, that Hearoid decal needs to be in the front, so make sure you put this together back in the right way. But you can see these tabs that I was talking about here. They're just locking. They're locking tabs, and that's what keeps the thing from turning. These other things are in place just to keep the head on straight, just as guides. Okay, so now we're ready to take this apart, and there's 3 screws underneath plus the sides here that hold this together. Okay, so let's go ahead and unscrew these, get these out of here as soon as I can find my screwdriver. So there are the 3 screws here holding the head, and then there are the 2 on the side where the ears, if you want to call it that, where the ears are. All the screws are the same, so you don't have to worry about where they came from. They're all the same size. So this will be ready to get retrobrighted. Zoom out of here. And you can see this piece slides right out. It's a little dusty. We'll just clean this up, but this is in fine shape, and it usually is because it's protected by that plastic shield in front. So, all right. So next steps for us is to retrobright these pieces, and we'll go from there. Okay, I may have gone through this in a previous video, how I retrobright things, but I thought I'd go through it one more time with you guys here. So these are the 3 pieces that I want to retrobright. Retrobrighting is basically going to take this yellow stuff off. Well, not off, it's going to make the yellow kind of fade away and bring it kind of back to its original color. Hopefully. Depends on the plastic. So what I do is basically, I use this Salon Care Volume 40. Now, some people might use the liquid. This is creamy paste, and that's why I brush it on. Some people might use the liquid, and they put it in a container and add water to it, and then they seal the container up and throw UV light on it, and off you go. I like this method better. I brush it on with the brush. I take that paste, brush it on here. Once I brush it on there, you don't want the peroxide, that's what this is, to evaporate. So then I put this in a plastic bag, clear side up of course, and then I seal the bag, and that'll keep the peroxide from evaporating, okay? So I put these pieces in a box, and this guy here, if you can see that, So this box is lined with aluminum foil. That way the UV light, basically is reflected everywhere. And then I close the box up, and there's an opening, and that opening on the box is for this UV light. Now this is a pretty intense light. I use it to cure my resin 3D prints. So it not only produces a ton of UV light, that little thing is amazing. It's like a Pekingese dog, they got a big bite. Anyways, it produces a ton of light, and the other part is so intense that it also produces heat. And the aluminum foil not only reflects all the light, but it also keeps the heat in. So there's two things that you need for retrobrighting, basically. Peroxide, and in a manner so it doesn't evaporate because there's going to be heat, right? So we put it in plastic bags. The other is that it needs heat. Heat and peroxide is what reacts and makes the retrobrighting technique work. Now, depends on the plastic. I found better success with some plastics than others, but that's what we're going to do here. And then I basically cover this with peroxide, put it in a plastic bag, put it in the box, put the UV light on, and then I leave it that way for about 24 to 48 hours. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do this off camera just in case I make a little bit of a mess. Make sure you wear gloves because this stuff will burn. And then cover it up. I'll put it in the box. I'll shoot a little bit of video before I shut the box down, and we'll leave it there for a couple of days and see how it turns out. Okay, so here are our three pieces that are in there. Don't know if you can see all of them or not, but we doused them in peroxide. So now what we do is we shut this, get our UV light. Our UV light covers up that hole there, and then basically just turn on the UV, you can see, and off it goes. So it'll stay that way for a day or so, a day or two. We'll check on it in a day, and we'll do a few other things the same way. We have the little side ears, I call them. So let me see if I can get that covered in here. So we'll get these done as well. There we go. Because these are a little yellow, so we'll do that at the same time. Maybe if there's room in that box, I'll just drop them in right now as well. Okay, so be back in a couple of days and see how this worked out. Okay, so here we are again. Finished getting these out of the Retrobright box, and I gotta say, I guess I'm not gonna be painting because these came out looking pretty nice. The yellow is pretty much gone on all these pieces. So, these marks are embedded in the plastic. I can't get those little marks out, but nonetheless, retrobrighted all of those, retrobrighted the front. That came out looking really, really nice. And then I went back and I also retrobrighted the arms. So the arms, what ended up happening is I only retrobrighted the head of it, but it didn't match then the body. So then I retrobrighted the body. So the head matched the body now, but then the arms looked too yellow compared to the body. So I had to go and retrobright the arms as well. So, serves me right because I should have known better. I should have just retrobrighted everything to begin with. But anyways, over a period of a few days, basically went and retrobrighted all the pieces. There's the side, the little ears, I call them. So anyways, everything came out, pretty nice. So what we do now is start putting everything back together and then giving it a test to see if all the electronics work. And I don't want to say we would waste our time if they didn't, because the next alternative is to throw some modern, electronics in it and just make another robot out of it that's a little bit more modern, maybe with cameras and stuff like that. But if we can restore this back to the original, that's really what the goal is. But there's always another use for it. So first things first is I'm going to put this aside for the time being. So first things first is getting, its head back together again. So for that, we're going to put the screws back in place here. So this slides into these little slots right here. Just a little bit of dirt on that. So, and then there's little slots here that this top slides into as well. Okay. And then put the 4 screws here that hold it in place. Well, there's 5 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Let me go find those screws. Yeah. Once you have one in, the rest just follow. So. Then the next thing we do is we want to put this back, and you want to make sure that the sticker here is facing the front here. So and there are the little tabs, if you remember, that we pulled out a little bit. So this thing, you should turn and snap basically right into place. Yeah, hear that click? Those are the tabs coming into place. So it's a lot nicer than when we first started. All the yellowing's gone. So this is looking good. As far as that, the blue, these little screws here. As far as this blue, cleaned it up as best as I could. There's still just marks on it. It just looks wanky. I'm gonna put it on for now, but I'll just, if I can't find a blue replacement, the Heroids are tough to find. I'll start looking for a Roby Senior replacement, which is clear plastic. It'll be much easier to find, I'm sure. So you get those. Now these little ears that go on the side, they're marked inside with R and L, so that way you know the right and the left. And also you want this to align itself, vertically when you put it on, so that way make sure you put it on the right way. So yeah, see, I'm off. Way off. So turn this back. Try it again. Also helps It's not the front right, it's looking at it from the rear, it's the robot's right, and that's why it didn't go in straight. So there we go. That is now aligned the way it should be. Okay, so we do the other side. Okay, that's aligned the way it should be as well. So, got the head back on with the messed up globe, but nonetheless, it's okay. We'll figure that one out. So we can put that aside for now. And we'll come back to this guy here, because we've got to put the speaker and the microphone back in. So here we got the speaker. And here's the microphone. Going like that. The two screws hold down the microphone, and the two screws hold down the speaker. The heads of the screws hold these things in place. So it's not like you're missing anything. Okay, now that we've got that in place, we can look at putting in the cassette unit next. Don't forget to put the front plastic plate back on. Sometimes I forget to do that, and then I have to tear it all apart again because I forget that piece. Okay. 4 screws are still in here. I kept them in there so I wouldn't forget. There's 4 screws here, 2 on the top and 2 just below them. They'll hold the cassette in place. The orange wire here is for the antenna, and that's going to go down to the bottom. And you want to bring your speaker wire up. And you also want to bring your microphone wire up. So at this point, we can pop in the other side here. And you can't forget that the other side includes these arms. There we go. I want to route these wires through so they come back to the front again. I also want to put this door back, put the wires back through. Just kind of screw this, hold this door in place. Okay, so I just put 2 out of the 6 screws in here just to hold this together so it doesn't come out, but there we go. So that's not looking so bad. So what we're going to do next is test the electronics out by putting the wiring back together again. So there's some wires we need to plug in. Get them all sorted out here first so I can show you what we're doing. Okay, now before I do any of the wiring, I want to eject the cassette because the cassette moves some of the wiring with it. So I want to make sure that there's nothing that's interfering. Okay. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. What I did is I taped these wires here to the side of the case. That side of the casing. So this way, this is the cassette unit here, and you can see now traveling back and forth. If I didn't do that, it could carry these wires with it and rip them out. So, okay, so that's what that's all about. All right. Okay, so before I put the head unit back on and the motors, let me show you the wiring here. First of all, let's look at the back. So these 2 units of wiring here, these 3 that say motor on the board, is one set of wires, and then the other one is this clump of wire with the red, black, green, and blue that originate from the motherboard in a couple of different places. Those 2 clumps of wire are the ones that come here to the back, and they come through here, and there's There's 2 places here. They can only plug in one way. So that's where those 2 bundles plug in. Okay. Now for the rest of the wiring there, up. What we have here is the orange that plugs in towards the bottom here. That is for the what is it? The speaker or the condenser. Let me see which one it is offhand. That orange is for the speaker. Is for the microphone. That's the orange. Is the microphone, and that's what plugs in there. And then the brown is the speaker, and that's what's plugged in here. And then we have the black and white from the power plug in the back. These things pop up, you slide the wires in, and then you push them down, and that's how they hold the wires in place. That's what these two are. Just above the microphone here, that empty one, that's going to be the yellow plug from the headset. And then just below the red here, there's an open socket there. That is going to be the green from the headset. Okay, so that's really basically all the stuff that we had unplugged. So that way, and then there's this, the adjustment here goes just above the motor. There's a plug there. So basically, you're going to use up every plug in here. You just take a quick scan of everything, and if there's any open plugs, there's some wires missing somewhere that you need to plug in. But hopefully you can take a quick snapshot of this, or I can also post a snapshot of this. But that's the wiring, and that's for the Hearoid. The other bots aren't much different. The colors might be a little bit different, but it's basically the same board. So same for the Roby Senior, same for the 4502, whatever it may be. So hopefully that helps you out with the wiring. And then the motor, the wiring for the motor comes from here. So this wiring here goes down to the motor, okay, because these switches here will control whether the motor works or not. They should always be in the on position, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so I'm gonna put the motor back on here, and let's put a battery in this thing, and let's see if this works. Okay, so before we put all this together, next thing we want to do is test these motors out. I've already unscrewed the box here. Thought I unscrewed the box. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's test these guys out here. Okay, right off the bat, I don't see anything going on with the gears, so that's good. There's nothing that looks broken or cracked, so we'll take that as a good sign. So these motors, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take a couple of batteries here. think these take like the 6 volts, but we're going to apply 3 with the 2 batteries here because I don't think one's going to be enough. Let me see. Yeah, one's not enough, but I can see the motor trying to turn. Okay, so that motor works. That's a good sign. What about the other one here? Okay. And that's not a good sign. The other motor's not even budging. Nothing. Nothing. So we know, and this is well connected. This is well connected too. Let's try it again just one more time just in case, but I don't think it's going to do anything. Nope, nothing. Not even a nudge. So looks like we're gonna have to take this guy apart, clean it maybe. Hopefully cleaning it will take care of it. I'm turning it like this, and maybe I'll put some WD-40 in it and see if cleaning it doesn't do anything. So let's do that. I'll be right back. Okay, got some contact cleaner here. Don't want to make too much of a mess. Look at that. That's all it needed was a little bit of cleaning. How do you like them apples? All right. Looks like we may be in business now. All right, I think that's enough of that. Let's get this thing back together. Love it. Make sure you put the wires back in the little channels because you don't want to squish the wiring, possibly chafe or cut them. I don't know why I'm doing that. There's nothing to screw it down into. Jeez, for God's sakes. Alright, so I'm not going to screw this back onto the base just yet. Let's just make sure that everything works here. Putting these screws in just so I don't lose them. So now I'm going to go forward. Reverse. I don't see this gear here turning, though. Right. Left. Yeah, let me take a look at that gear. Get these screws out of the way here. Guess I celebrated too early. Let's see what's going on. Making sure here that there's no broken solder points anywhere. Okay, let's plug this back in. We'll try one more time. Pop those guys out. Okay, so yeah, this guy here doesn't really like what's going on. Okay, let's test that motor one more time, because if it's not working, then we have a connection problem somewhere. Both of these switches here are both up, so I'll have to test the voltage on that if this doesn't work. Let's test this one more time here. Well, that motor's working, so maybe when it was seized up it fried something along the way, which would really suck. But we'll find out. We'll get the voltage meter here, but at least we know the motors work, so I'm just going to seal this back up. Alright, let's see what we've got going on here. Okay, so we know the red and brown work, so let's turn this thing on real quick here. There you go, 4 volts. Alright, now the orange and yellow, which are little problem children here apparently. I get nothing. Nothing. And the orange and yellow come from here. So, okay, Mr. Orange and Yellow, Alright, so let's take this little casing out here and try and see if we're getting any voltage coming from here. And it's not the wire, that's kind of messed up somewhere along the way. So here we've got, shut this off for a second. Here we've got the the red and brown coming right here. And then here we have the orange and yellow. So let's go ahead and test this one more time here. Yeah, let's turn this on. Okay, the orange and brown from here. Okay, there's 4 volts. Okay, so I am getting orange and yellow. There were 4 volts coming from here. So somewhere along the line here, going down to the wiring downstairs is our problem. Because I was getting 4 volts. Okay, I should get 4 volts right now on the red and brown. Okay, I'm getting 5 volts on the red and brown, that's fine. So then on the orange and red, I'm getting nothing coming in here. So let me come up top here to find out. The orange and red coming in here. So I'm wondering if this switch, where's the switch for it? I think it's this guy on this side. Wonder if that switch is the thing that's messed up here. Okay, this is coming from the circuit board inside, so we know that that works, and we know we're getting 4 or 5 volts coming in. You can see that right there. So the 4 or 5 volts needs to come up to here, to this guy. So yellow and orange are on the left-hand side here. Okay, I'm getting 5 volts now coming through after flying around with that switch. So messing around with that switch. So it looks like the contact on that switch was messed up. So we should be getting 5 volts now on the orange and yellow here. Yeah, now we're getting the 5 volts. So it looks like we had an issue with that switch, and you know what? We'll resolve that really quick by pouring some of this stuff in there. Might as well put it on all of them. Alright, so this is going to go up. We'll just move it a couple of times and keep it up, and then go to the right. Okay. So let's test it just one more time before we seal this thing back up. Just the bottom two here. It's the bottom two right there that we need to test. Okay, so let's turn this back on. And I'm turning on the motors. So let's test these one more time. I should be getting 5 volts right now. And I am. I should be getting 5 volts there. And I am. Okay. Well, that was kind of easy. It just needed a lot of cleaning. So we'll get this thing put back together here. So now let's try the motor one more time here. All right. Whew. All right, let's see if this works out now. Turn this back on. Turn the remote on. Keep your fingers crossed. There we go. Forward, reverse, right turn. Notice they move in opposite directions. Left turn, they move in opposite directions. So we got that working. All right, so now we know we got motors working. We got the cassette working. So let's put this back together and see if we get any sound, because the one thing is I did notice is I don't hear any sound. Okay, so all the wheels are the same, so you don't need to worry about what goes where. I'm getting confused. And they just pop in here. It's more of a pain to pop these things out than it is to put them back. In order to get them out, because they're kind of friction is holding them in really tight, you have to spray it with some kind of lubricant or WD-40 or something, let it soak in a little bit and just kind of push it out. But again, it's just easier putting them in than taking them out. Okay. But they were already out when I received this, so I can't really complain too much. Okay, well, this isn't so bad. Yeah, they're in, and it doesn't look that they're being held in all that tight, so it's not like the Omnibox. It's a lot harder to take out. So might replace the treads on this. They're not too bad, but they got these little flat spots right here. These on this side don't look so bad. They don't have, yeah, they do. They got a little flat spot there too. So I'll reprint, or I'll 3D print some new threads, but for the time being, we'll just put this back together. It's not too difficult to take apart. Okay. I'm lifting it up off the table with my hands, so the wheels don't push this up. I just need to get a couple screws in there and then we can put it down. All right. So we got to put the head back on here. And we have to put the antenna. So you're gonna have to separate this a little bit to put the head on here. And remember, green is just below the plus and minus, and yellow is towards the front. So let's go ahead and manage to do that. Let's this camera back. That's the yellow one. And that's the green one. Okay. And just unscrew this. And make sure it's straight. It's so easy to get this off center. There we go. And take a look at it one more time just to make sure it's centered, because it's really easy to get it tweaked. So you'll know by the sticker, the Hearoid sticker needs to be in the middle. And that is in the middle. Okay. So now we got to put this on its side, and let's get the antenna and the motor hooked up. Okay. So that's the antenna. And then we connect the motor up. Okay, and then we need the little plastic, the 4 little plastic bumpers. The rear has these little L's. You can't mess up the front because it's curved. But the rear have these little L's, the sides don't. So that's how you know the rear bumper. There we go. Always nice to hear that clicking sound. That means you got everything in place. So this isn't like the Omnibot 2000 that's heavy as heck. This one's nice and easy to manipulate around. Okay, before I put all the rest of the screws in, go ahead and test it one more time here. We left the batteries in there. So let's move this back. All right, let's turn this guy on. First we turn on the remote. And turn this guy on. Oh, good, the light went on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go, the light's going off with my voice. That's what you want. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The microphone isn't very good on this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got that, and let's go forward. Well, it's not going forward. So now, what happened? So I'm not getting anything from the remote. Ah, there we go. User 1 or 2 needed to be pressed on the remote. Apparently, that's what I did, and then it started going. So now, let's go forward. Let's go backwards. Let's go right. Left. Okay. So the only thing in light, the light turns on, light turns off. So the only thing now basically is in getting the voice controls. So you have to train it. I'm not going to go through that. I need the manual, and I have the manuals, but I'll have to go through it in order to get it working with your voice. It has a limited, voice recognition to make it go forward, backwards, right, and left. But the mere fact that the entire remote works, the tape works, the robot, for the most part I would consider fully functional. I can always teach it, through the voice stuff. That was the whole thing with the Hearoid, is it being voice activated. And again, we're going to have to replace the canopy here. But other than that, it retrobrighted nicely. Everything works. It's fully intact. And I'm pretty stoked, considering that I got this in pieces. And I think the person that gave it to me probably gave up, because the contacts on the motors, also the contacts on the remote, also the buttons need cleaning. The buttons, the switches on the back needed cleaning. That's why one of the motors wasn't working. Well, one of the motors was stuck, right? So you saw that. So we needed to put some deoxide in it to unstick it, and then let it run for a little while to make sure it got all the oxidation off. Because what happens with these things when they sit is the motors, they have a copper inside them, with the bushings, and so the thing is, they get oxidized, and then the motors get stuck, and then they can't turn because they don't, have any contact with the electricity to make them turn. So that's the deal. Don't ever think a motor is completely wasted or dead. If you run into the same problem, clean it first. In the worst case scenario, open it up and clean it, and then put it back together again, because I bet you money if you open it up, you're going to see that the copper in there is black, and that just needs to be cleaned. I'll use vinegar to clean it sometimes, or you can use WD-40, but you saw me use this contact cleaner, electrical contact cleaner, to get this thing working. So there it is. I'm not going to waste any more of your time. You saw this thing's functioning, it's working, it's great, and there you go. Another one saved from fate. Well, their fate of death is recycling, so another one saved from recycling. Anyways, I hope you got something out of this, and I hope it helps you, restore your Hearoid, or even your Omnibot, because they're all basically the same. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. In the meantime, enjoy life. Like I say all the time, you only live once. Life is good.